So that guy I met on eHarmony? Yeah. We're out together last night and I step off a curb and snap, heel breaks right off my shoe.
Oh no.
So I say, hell with it, take them off so I'm barefoot, and you'll never guess.
What?
He leans over, takes off his shoes and socks, and now we're both...
You're joking.
Amazing, right?
At eHarmony, you'll find someone you can be yourself with. Get who gets you on eHarmony. Sign up for eHarmony today.
Finding someone that understands you is hard because you're human, and there's a lot of different humans out there. eHarmony helps you find someone you can be yourself with. You think no one would understand mourning a plant like it's a loved one, or singing made-up songs to your dog, but that's the type of person eHarmony helps you find. Someone who makes you feel seen, heard, and understood. Get started today on eHarmony. Get who gets you.
Learning how to feed your body the ingredients it needs to heal itself is a pretty high-level skill. It can be a little bit difficult to master, but the payoffs are huge. You're listening to the Health Courage Collective podcast, episode 181, Functional Nutrition to Help Your Body Heal Itself. Welcome to the Health Courage Collective podcast, the show for women who are too busy to slog through hours of generalized, inapplicable, and often contradictory health information, but too smart to ignore that a few minutes of focused attention now can prevent years of suffering in the future. I'm your host, Christina Hackett, a pharmacist who doesn't want you to live on prescriptions, a certified coach specifically trained to maximize your potential, and a compulsive learner obsessed with preventative, cutting-edge, holistic, and integrative medicine. I'm on a mission to increase your physical and mental resilience so you can fearlessly look forward to your next 40-plus limitless years. Your time is now. Let's go. Hello, my friend, and welcome to another episode. So happy you're here today. How is your confusion? Have you started to see how that uncomfortable feeling of confusion can help you learn and understand more about how to become the person that you want to be? Don't forget to feel excited the next time you feel confused. Today, we have a special guest named Risa Groux. She's a functional nutritionist and certified autoimmune coach. She's always been passionate about nutrition and good health. Risa was so concerned about purity that she made all of her children's own baby food from scratch. Today, she's passionate about cooking and creating healthy, nutritious food. She works with a wide array of clients, from professional athletes, adults and kids, and contestants on The Biggest Loser Season 4. Risa works with issues like diabetes, autoimmune disease, cancer, digestion, thyroid, and hormone imbalances, to name a few. She firmly believes that the body can heal itself with whole foods we obtain from the earth, and sees living proof of that in her office every day. She looks at root causes using functional nutrition guidelines, blood and stool tests, and knows that weight loss is just a side effect of wellness. Risa created an online course called Achieving Optimal Thyroid Health because she was able to reverse her own Hashimoto's disease and now works to help other people reverse their autoimmune and other conditions. She's also the author of a book called Food Frame. Diet is a 4-letter word, which encompasses a lot of the concepts of functional nutrition. So without further ado, here's my conversation with Risa. All right. Welcome. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, this is an honor to have you. So you're a functional nutritionist and autoimmune coach. What sparked your interest in figuring out how to help your body heal itself?
A lot, actually. My health story is quite long, but I grew up in a house where my mom was perpetually on a diet and trying to lose 5 or 10 pounds. And it was this starvation, deprivation thing. And so I had this really bad relationship with food. My grandma was doing the same thing in her house. And, it was the good foods and the bad foods, and all the bad foods tasted pretty good to me. So I was very, very confused. And so what did I do? Of course, when I was in high school, I just started doing the same thing and going on a diet. And it was this deprivation, starvation. And then it was, the floodgates were open or they were closed, right? So it was this really bad relationship with food. And then I was just always interested in nutrition. I got married, I got pregnant right away, no problem, had an easy pregnancy. And when we tried to conceive for our second, it was a very different story. I just could not conceive at all. And if I did, then I would have miscarriages. So super frustrating. And so I kind of went down that road, and I finally acquiesced and went to a fertility specialist, and they did some blood work, and they basically handed over the script and said, you have an underachieving thyroid. Your thyroid is not working optimally. So here's some medication. So I said, well, how long do I have to take this for? And they said, every day. And I said, well, no, like, for how long do I take this? And he said, oh, for the rest of your life. And at that point, I walked out of that office with two major burning questions. One is, why is my thyroid not working, right? Why is this gland that I was born with not making the hormone that it's supposed to make? And two, why is the doctor not curious why, and why are we not looking to fix it?
Yeah.
So we're going to use these synthetic hormones to replicate what my body's supposed to be making. So I really had a struggle with that. And then I started to do my own research and realized that I had this gene mutation that's extremely common. Almost everybody I work with has it. And it's called MTHFR, and it causes infertility and miscarriages. Imagine that. So I started taking the proper B vitamin in methylated form, and I was able to get pregnant, easy pregnancy, everything was fine. And that started me on my path. I raised my kids and really gave them good, healthy food, and then went back to school to become a nutritionist. I found functional medicine. At the same time, I was diagnosed with Hashimoto's, which means that now not only was my thyroid underachieving, but now my body was attacking my thyroid gland, assuming that it was the enemy.
Mm.
And so I just kind of put the brakes on there, and I really did a deep dive. And I went down a root cause list that I created because I couldn't find one anywhere. And I had every single one of those root causes. I addressed them all. It took me many years to do it, but I was able to reverse my Hashimoto's by going to all the root causes. So now I'm fortunate. I'm in a situation where I get to help people, and I help them with their autoimmune or help them optimize their health. And they have to go through a little less pain and suffering than I did, and an expense than I did to figure things out.
Yeah, that's awesome. So it sounds like it was a lot of work and kind of a long road, but what does it feel like to like realize you don't have to rely on some medication that the doctor gives you and you can heal yourself?
Healing yourself is the most amazing and powerful feeling. I do, however, still take some thyroid medication,
Sure.
but it's very different than what I had originally. But the body can heal. The body
Yeah.
definitely can heal. So I'm still working on the medication part, but we're not dealing with Hashimoto's anymore, which is great. Yeah, we all are born with this amazing resilient body. It's amazing to me how much the body can handle. And so we do have everything we need to heal.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so you help people not just with thyroid, but any other kind of autoimmune or other condition where maybe their body's not as resilient as it could be. Is that?
Exactly. Or just there may be things in its way, right? So functional nutrition is based on four major pillars, functional medicine pillars, that I use in my practice every day. One is we're looking at prevention, right? And unfortunately, our paradigm in conventional allopathic medicine does not look at prevention. We
Mhm.
only help you when you're in full-blown disease state. And
Yeah.
so we look at prevention. The second thing we do is we look at root causes. So why is it that I'm having headaches, or I feel fatigue, or weight gain, or constipation, or anxiety, or whatever it may be? We look at the root causes to it. It's not just a pill for an ill paradigm, right? So we are looking that maybe there's a deficiency, or maybe there's a pathogen or something's going on that is causing the system to get off course. The third pillar that we focus on is we consider the body as one interconnective unit. So every system has to do with each other typically. And in our conventional medicine paradigm, again, we have physicians who focus on one particular organ or gland, or so we don't really interface with each other, but it's all very interconnected.
Yeah.
So, and the fourth pillar is data. And I'm crazy about data because I always say I cannot play darts with the lights off when I cannot see the target.
Mhm.
So I order a comprehensive blood panel. So I see all your markers, all your inflammation markers and thyroid markers, and all 9 of them except for one, right? Which conventional medicine typically orders. All 4 markers of your blood sugar except for one, which they typically order. So we're really seeing a full picture. And I send everybody home with a stool test that first day as well, because I've got to know what's going on in their gut. Because at the end of the day, the major foundational issues, I've been doing this for so long, so many decades, that I realize the two major foundational issues that either help optimize our health or hinder our health is systemic inflammation, because that's the driver of disease, and the other one is gut health. So those really are critical areas that we don't typically test for. So it's really important to do the testing and find out what's going on.
Yeah. And I imagine even if people aren't super sick yet, they're maybe on this path and you can catch that way earlier.
Exactly.
Yeah. So how do you use functional nutrition guidelines to help people figure out the root cause?
So I by doing all the testing. So for
Okay.
instance, I'm working with somebody right now who has Sjogren's. And we found out that she has a very, very high level of a pathogen in her gut called Roseburia, which has a connection to Sjogren's. So we have been addressing that overgrowth of bacteria, and we'll be testing her soon to find out all of her symptoms have now started to go away, all of her Sjogren's symptoms. So it's really great to see that.
Yeah.
And so we'll see if we're able to reverse that.
And you talk about eating according to your health status, which I think sounds great. Does that mean everybody's going to eat the same thing?
No, exactly the
Yeah.
opposite. Because what happens is, I grew up at a time where there would be a new diet book out, right? Now we wouldn't call it a diet book, we would call it probably some kind of a health approach, right?
Yeah.
Or food approach. But these diet books come out, and we've got to eat like this, right? We've got to take this out, or we got to not have this, or we got to have only this, or too much of that, and not enough of this, and all these things, right? And we all know, we read the book, we did it, our neighbor or our friend did it, our coworker, and they lost 42 pounds and we lost nothing, right?
Hmm.
So why is that? Well, it took me years to figure this out because I've been working with people with food for so long. And I finally put it together that everybody should be eating according to their current health status. So, meaning that if you maybe have some blood sugar dysregulation, you probably would do best on either keto if you do qualify for keto, and I don't think everybody qualifies for keto because so you'd have to look, or paleo. But conversely, if you have chronic bloating, maybe some gas, some diarrhea, some constipation or alternating of that, and you may have some IBS, is what they told you, or IBD, an irritable bowel disease or syndrome, or you have SIBO, small intestinal bacteria overgrowth, I would not suggest that you do things that have high in certain types of carbohydrates, right? So you wouldn't be good on vegan, right? Because you'd be having a lot of vegetables with types of carbohydrates that are going to exacerbate your situation. So I would recommend that you are on a low FODMAP program, for 30 to 90 days. I make recommendations in my book of how when you fix something, when you no longer have that situation, when your health status changes, then you eat accordingly a different way. So I make recommendations on this couple of maintenance ways that you can do that. So if you have autoimmune disease, that you should probably be eating an AIP protocol, right? An autoimmune protocol for 30 to 90 days. And then I make my recommendations after that. So every body is different. We all have different genetics. We all have different gut microbiomes. So we shouldn't all be eating the same way. We all have different lifestyles, right? If you're running, 30 miles a day or a week, versus somebody who's sedentary. If you're living in the woods, or versus somebody who's living next to a steel metal plant, these people need to be eating and taking different supplements, right? It's just got to be a customized program for each person.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, everybody's different and your time of life might be different.
And that too.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. What do you see as the biggest obstacles that your patients have to overcome to be able to eat correctly for their health status?
I think that people really want to eat better, but I think some people, there's a lot of psychology in eating. There's a lot of, our relationship with eating is really very complex, right? We don't have that same relationship with brushing our teeth, right? We have to brush our teeth twice a day. We seem to do it whether we want to or not. We just do it, right? We don't complain about it. We don't really take much space in our head about thinking about it.
Yeah.
You're not driving home from work going, oh my gosh, I hope there's a lot of toothpaste in that toothpaste, tube. But we might be driving home thinking, oh, I hope nobody ate the leftover brownies or whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
So we have a very complex relationship with food. And I think that really hinders us. We use it for comfort, we use it for a reward, we use it for punishment, we use it for celebration, we use it for power. There's a lot of things that we do for our fuel that we don't really need to. And so I think people really want to change. And people who come in my office and say, okay, I'm going to change and I'm going to eat this way, and they thrive, it's awesome. But there's some hurdles for some people, and they have a lot of social attachment to food as well. Well, we always get together and have, wine on Thursday nights or every night, wine is a big thing for people. So, people don't take their wine from them, but that is a cascading effect because it's just a lot of sugar in the system. It's bad for sleep and so on and so on. And so it's people's attachments or their fear around
Okay.
food that is the biggest hurdle.
Yeah. Do you have any great tips of how you help people get through those things?
Every individual is different, so I approach
Yeah.
it a little bit differently with people. Most people I don't have this issue with because by the time they come and see me, they're really motivated to make the change. But
Okay.
sometimes if they're not, I have different things. Sometimes I will have, I've been very successful with having people write their food log, but they don't, but if they write it before they eat it, it's usually more successful because if you plan what you're going to eat, and you write it down, you're kind of committed to that, right? I'm going to see
Mm-hmm.
it at the end of the week or the end of the day or whatever it is when they're submitting it to me, and they've got to be honest with that. But versus if you just write down what you ate that day, now that's also a very helpful tool for some people because they won't eat it if they have to write it down. But some people will just eat it and write it down anyway. So it depends on their personality. As again, I individuate everything for every circumstance is very different. But those are some good tips to do. Giving people budgets. Sometimes people are really good with budgets. You can have, this many out of the box or this many carbs or whatever it is, that they're really have that attachment to. If it's that wine night on Thursdays, then you're going to have, budget your wine. Just like we budget our money, we
Yeah.
need to budget our food that way.
Yeah. I like that. Okay. Cool. What would be your top tip for a woman, say in her mid to late 40s, who hasn't been diagnosed with an autoimmune disease, but she knows menopause is waiting around the corner for her and she's starting to kind of feel a little bit different with her hormones? What do you think would be a good approach for someone like that?
Yeah, testing is really, really important. So stay ahead of the curve.
Okay.
And once you start seeing sleep disturbances, maybe perhaps some weight gain, you can start seeing some lethargy. Stay
Mhm.
ahead of that and don't just say, oh, it was this or this stressful event, or wait till after. Or I would stay on top of it with blood tests. And then just, make sure that you are not eating too many estrogen related foods like and using a lot of estrogen related products like parabens in shampoo is a really great way. They
Mm.
contain isoflavones, which basically mimic estrogen. Receipts on store receipts, try not to hold those too much. They have BPAs as well. BPAs in water bottles, BPSs and BPAs in water bottles and tin cans and things like that. Really, really hard to escape a lot of those things.
Yeah.
Soy is something that I would not recommend people having a lot of. Soybean oil is in a lot of processed foods, unfortunately. So I wouldn't even recommend processed foods ever. But a lot of soy products, I would use a coconut aminos instead of a soy sauce, which is a great substitute
Mm.
for soy. But those are the kinds of things that I would recommend is go in with your eyes open. And, when you go into menopause, you really only have about a 10-year window in which you can use HRT, hormone replacement therapy.
Mhm.
And not everybody wants to use it, and that's fine. And not everybody can, and that's fine. But just know that you have that window and
Right.
do your research. Yeah.
Okay, great. Yeah, I think there's a ton you can do with, but it's can be so confusing. Like, I want to do something, what should I do? Yeah, but I think that's great. Start with testing and then
Yeah. And
yeah.
just make sure you're having enough protein when you make that change.
Hmm.
Maybe tone down your cardiovascular and go more into weightlifting,
Okay.
or weight resistance training.
Hmm.
It's a better fit for women who are on that side, and, and going into menopause or in menopause.
Yeah, great. Yeah, those are great tips. How do you use functional medicine along with functional nutrition to tailor interventions to the individual you're working with? We talked about testing, I guess, is one of the ways. Are there any other symptoms or any other things that you can use to help tailor their plan?
Well, I'm always chasing the symptoms. So if somebody is having symptoms still, first thing I do is when we first meet, I get all the information, I order all the tests, and I start them on my 2-week detox. The detox
Mhm.
is a really, really great way to sort of optimize your blood, optimize your liver, get the junk out so that
Mhm.
things are working more optimally. It's not a starvation program. It's actually really good. It's delicious. Two collagen shakes a day with protein, fat, and fiber. And then you're eating food, protein, fat, and fiber. So it's not a starvation or
Mhm.
a deprivation program, but you're really eating really good, clean foods from the earth, no processed foods. We're taking out all the inflammatory foods. So a lot of people's symptoms will go away right there from that 2
Mhm.
weeks, or they will improve tremendously. And then after that, I'll be able to know once I get the labs back, once I get the stool test back, I'll have a really good idea of where we're going. If symptoms persist there, then I'm going to look a little deeper. I'm going to order more tests like mold test or adrenal stress index test because cortisol is a really very effective at causing disruption in the body.
Yeah.
Going to order some maybe heavy metals, things like that. I don't order hormones off the bat unless it's if it's necessary, then I do. So I'll just keep going deeper. I tend to not order all those tests at the beginning because it's expensive and it's quite frankly sometimes too much information. We don't
Mhm.
need all that information, but I go step by step. So perhaps there's a gluten shows up for you on the stool test. Then I'm going to do some further testing on that to see if there's any celiac or if there is cross reactivity and molecular mimicry. So I will do further testing if warranted.
Yeah. Great. Yeah. Sounds like you have it all figured out what the plan, like this is where we start with this detox and then how to move forward. So that's great.
Yeah.
So I see the future of medicine, it really needs to become way more personalized, which is kind of the way you approach it. Do you see anything coming up in the future for functional nutrition that you think is exciting?
Yeah, I do see a lot of things coming down the pipeline. One, there's two major things that I'm seeing that I'm super excited about. One is genetic testing. I really feel like we're doing way more of that. I do genetic testing in my office as well. And it's something that I think is so helpful because, as we were talking about, everybody is individual, right? We all have a different
Yeah.
microbiome, we all have different genetics. So it's once you get that genetic testing, I mean, I'm hoping by the time my grandchildren are born, which I'm hoping is soon, but I hope that we'll take that blood and be able to say, okay, here is your here's your blueprint. But it doesn't necessarily mean that because you're on the autoimmune track that you're going to have to go down that road and become
Yeah.
an autoimmune patient. You know in advance, so you can make a left turn. You can do all these things that you that are in your power to avoid that. And then I just think it's very valuable. So genetic testing is becoming much more prevalent, and I hope it becomes mainstream.
Yeah.
Uh, the second thing that we're really seeing advancements that I am super excited about, I think it's about time, is probiotics. And again, that's something that's becoming a little bit more customized. Do you have anxiety? Here's a probiotic for anxiety. Here is a probiotic for skin. Here's a probiotic for gut health or for whatever it is. We're
Yeah.
becoming a little bit more specific. I think this whole topic of probiotics has been so misunderstood because I don't think anybody really knows what's going on. We're slowly starting to figure it out. Now we're talking about postbiotics, which are your short chain fatty acids, which
Mhm.
create diversity of the microbiome, which is really, really critical. So we're starting to unfold a lot more information around probiotics, and we're starting to get customized probiotics, which I think is very exciting.
Yeah, that is exciting. I know there's a few like that help with metabolic health or whatever.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I maybe a step further would be which, I mean, it could be hard, but like which prebiotics are going to feed those bacteria that you want there, and then you can eat for that kind of.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly. Yeah.
yeah, that is exciting. When you do genetic testing, does it help you decide like what kind of foods they're going to tolerate better?
Yeah, the genetic test that I use really determines a lot of their vitamins. So
Okay.
absorb their metabolism with those vitamins. And so you might be a person who needs a little bit more vitamin D because you don't absorb it. But and those kinds of nutrients, calcium and our minerals and stuff. So it's good for vitamins and minerals.
Mm.
It's also the test that I use tells you if you're like a natural born snacker or not.
Oh,
Kind of exercise is best for you. Are you more endurance? Are you more lifting weights?
mm,
It's really interesting the test that I use that tells all your genetics. So and it
okay.
helps with a little bit of like B vitamins, your MTHFR, things like that. So it's really, really helpful to have that kind of information.
Yeah, that's great. So I know you have an online course about thyroid health, I think, and then you also have like a detox program. So what more, how can we learn more from you?
Yeah, my thyroid course, I put every single ounce of knowledge I've ever accumulated on this long journey on the in that course. I wish that I could have had that course when I was going through what I was going through. It would have cut so many years and aggravation and pain and tears and money. And so it's called Achieving Optimal Thyroid Health. And it basically gives everything you need to know about thyroid. So whether you have a thyroid, if you have thyroidectomy, you have Graves' disease, hyperthyroid, or Hashimoto's or hypothyroid. It tells you which supplements to take, which supplements not to take, what foods to eat, which foods to avoid. What is the testing, what you should be looking for, what are optimal ranges and what are normal ranges. So those are very different, right? In our blood
Yeah.
labs, we look for normal ranges, what that's not going to optimize our health.
Mhm.
So we want optimal ranges. So it's a really very comprehensive course that you take at your own speed. And again, I wish I had that course when I was going through what I was going through. And then on my website at Risa Groux Nutrition, it's RISAGROUX nutrition.com. I have my book, Food Frame, Diet is Four-Letter Word. It was endorsed by Dr. Stephen Gundry, Dr. Josh Axe, JJ Virgin, and the late Suzanne Summers. And it is has all the 6 major diet types that I recommend and what to eat, what not to eat, who's best suited for them, who's not, and all this kind of information. That it's packed with information. I have my product line on there, of course, my RGN Detox, which is a 2-week program. It's on there, and we have it in chocolate and strawberry vanilla, and we have a vegetarian one as well. But it is really, really, really helpful for anybody to do. And then my line of supplements, which are all gluten-free, dairy-free, soy-free, sugar-free, crap-free, no dyes, no chemicals, no crap in it. Because I'm super, super picky. So that's all on there. You can take the quiz on there, Food Frame quiz, to find out which diet type is best for you. It's only 12 questions and it's free. And it's really important to be eating according to your own current health status. All my social media is at Risa Groux Nutrition, and I work with people all over the country. So reach out on Risa Groux Nutrition, and we'd be happy to help.
Yeah, that's awesome. So we can go take our test and get your book and kind of go through and start with a detox.
Yeah,
Yeah,
start
that's
the healing
awesome.
process. Exactly,
Yeah, and anyone with thyroid issues,
for
if their
sure.
doctor just told them take this Synthroid for the rest of your life, they probably want to take your course. Yeah.
Exactly, exactly.
Great. Is there anything that I missed that you wanted to tell us?
I'm just happy to offer your listeners 10% off the detox.
Okay,
Uh,
great.
yeah, so I imagine you'll put that in the show notes.
Yeah, I will.
Okay, great.
Okay, I'll put a link for that. So 10% off the detox. I'll put a link in the show notes. And thanks so much for being here. You're a font of information, so I really appreciate it.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for having me. It's been a
Yeah,
pleasure.
thank you. Oh, she's so knowledgeable, right? And I love how she's able to customize everything she does for each individual because none of us are the same and none of us need the exact same approach. I'll put links in the show notes, but you can find more about her at her website. And if you use coupon code HCC10, which stands for Health Courage Collective 10, you can get 10% off her detox program, which is a great place to start. You can also check out her book, Food Frame, Diet is a 4-letter word, or take her free quiz on her website, risagrouxnutrition.com. Her name is spelled Risagroux. Next Wednesday is Christmas Day. Can you believe it? We'll be talking about the crucial moment you achieve greatness. Until then, let your food help your body heal, and don't be normal. Thank you so much for tuning into the Health Courage Collective podcast. I am truly honored that you have paid me the enormous compliment of your time and attention. I would be so grateful if you would share this podcast with someone you know and subscribe so you never miss an episode. This podcast is for entertainment and information purposes only. Statements and views on this podcast are not medical advice. This podcast, including Christina Hackett and producers, disclaim responsibility for any possible adverse events by use of information contained herein. If you think you have a medical problem, consult a licensed physician.